Thank you for coming to my presentation. My name is Maria Battaglia, and I'm a PhD candidate in social and ecological sustainability at the University of Waterloo. I am also a student of the Water Institute, which is an interdisciplinary research institution within my home university. Finally, I am a student of the Vulnerability to Viability Global Partnership. So today I'm here to talk about small-scale fisheries and how a better understanding of human behavior can improve policy and catalyze the shift from vulnerability to viability. My work focuses on the human dimension of small-scale fisheries. And as a panelist that Mare mentioned yesterday, early conservation was very much focused on the biological, if you want, scientific, technical aspects of conservation. But now we're more and more realizing that conservation and sustainability are about people and people's behavior. And also the fact that nature is not, if we want, free from people. So as a social scientist, I bring into my research disciplines such as behavioral economics, sociology, and psychology to understand what motivates people's, and in this specific case, fishers' behavior, and to what extent people's behavior can adapt to the rapid changes in their surrounding environments. So starting with small-scale fishery, what they are, we know that small-scale fisheries support 90% of the 120 million people who are engaged in captive fisheries. They contribute to 2/3 of the global fish catch, which is destined to human consumptions. However, small-scale fisheries are highly marginalized, and small-scale fishers, about 5.8 million people, earn about less than $1 per day. There is no global definition of small-scale fishery. The reason is because they're highly heterogeneous, so diverse in nature. We know that, however, in general, they include low technology and low capital fishing methods. They are strongly anchored into their local communities, and in this regard, they represent a way of life. Moreover, small-scale fisheries provide a critical contribution to nutrition and food security, as well as poverty alleviation and livelihoods. And this is especially true in places like the Global South. So small-scale fisheries are highly vulnerable to change. Local and external drivers of change, such as you can see in the pictures, ocean acidification, overfishing, marine pollution, are changing both the density as well as the distribution of key ocean species, threatening the survivability not only of the fisheries and the fishing sector, but also of the communities that depend on it. So fish is becoming more scarce and is becoming smaller in size. And this makes fishers travel out at sea for longer periods of time and further out, but only to come back with a fraction of what they used to. So in this scenario, the transition to more sustainable fishing practices is one of the many key components to improve the resilience of fishing communities. The problem is that changing human behavior, and in specific fishers' behavior, is very hard. And one of the reasons is that fishing is a precarious profession, especially from a financial standpoint. And so this makes fishers reluctant to introduce uncertainty in their already uncertain livelihoods. So for this reason, phenomena like non-compliance are an ongoing challenge in small-scale fisheries governance. So previously used strategies to change fishers' behavior, such as rules and regulations, as well as material incentives and providing information, have proven ineffective methods to tackle small-scale fisheries compliance. This is because, on the one hand, most small-scale fisheries lack the capacity to enforce regulations. More fundamentally, however, traditional behavioral theories are based on unrealistic models of human behavior. So So these theories of behavior rely on problematic assumptions about human rationality. They state that humans, or as they call it in neoclassical economics, the Homo economicus, have one, well-defined preferences, unbiased beliefs, and unbiased expectations. Two, based on these preferences, beliefs, and expectations, they make dispassionate decisions that are considered to be optimal. Three, their primary motivation is self-interest. So Homo economicus models have long dominated the fisheries policy, and this created a very unhelpful dichotomy between how humans should behave and how humans actually behave. And this, amongst other challenges, resulted in problems of governance fit or ineffective governance and fisheries management. On the other hand, we have empirical evidence. So especially starting from the 1980s, researchers started to realize that people actually make decisions based on a number of other factors, starting with their perceptions, their cognitive and emotional biases, contextual factors, and very much importantly, in the context of small-scale fisheries, on social norms. Or the definition I use of social norms is given by Bicchieri and others, 2016, who defines social norms as patterns of behavior or informal rules. These depend on the perceptions and on the beliefs about what others do or think that should be done. So while social norms are a very important lens for understanding behavior and behavioral change, they are not well understood in the literature or in practice. And in small-scale fisheries, social norms are mostly studied in relation to recreational fisheries. And it is unclear whether applying approaches such as social norms intervention to contexts where small-scale fisheries provide income and sustenance can be an effective strategy. Nevertheless, we know that expectations about what other people do or consider should be done are one of the strongest drivers of human behavior and a powerful driver of non-compliant fisher behavior more in the specific. The Caribbean, and especially the island of Antigua, provide an appropriate context for my research. So Antigua's fisheries sector is particularly vulnerable to climate change due to the overexploitation of fishing grounds, to the exposure to the local and external drivers of change. And this is all coupled with communities' high reliance on the fisheries resources. In 2013, Antigua passed the Antigua's fisheries regulations, which amongst other points included new conservation measures. So these new conservation measures are aimed at protecting species in decline. And this included closed season to, for example, as you can see in the picture, lobster, chopfish or parrotfish, grouper, conch, and marine turtles. The problem is that lack of compliance with these regulations, obviously coupled with other drivers of change, has made the recovery of these species very difficult. And although we don't have an accurate estimate, today inshore fisheries of Antigua are likely fully exploited. So in the spring of 2021, I started contacting bodies and people in Antigua, and I formed a partnership with a local NGO, the Environmental Awareness Group, the National Parks Authority, as well as the Fisheries Division of Antigua and Barbuda. And together, we decided to focus these research efforts on understanding compliance with closed seasons. So my research question follows pretty naturally and is, how can a contextually relevant and empirically grounded understanding of fishers, social norms, and their drivers support the shift from vulnerability to viability of Caribbean small-scale fisheries? Further, how can this knowledge inform strategies to enable behavior change and facilitate new social norms development? From these follow two objectives. The first one would be to identify and measure current patterns of behavior associated with norms of non-compliance with local conservation measures. Again, in particular, I focus on closed seasons. Within this objective, I will also document the cognitive, the emotional, and the social drivers of behavior associated with norms of non-compliance. So to do this, I will use a game theoretic approach, from economics. And in particular, I believe elicitation protocol, which is a variation of the dictator game. So I'm briefly gonna go into it to kind of explain very broadly what it is. Just a note, in my research, I do focus on injunctive norms in particular, which are beliefs or perceptions about what one should do or should not do. It is very hard to elicit injunctive norms, especially in cases where behaviors are not directly observable, such as in the case of compliance or non-compliance. So to measure injunctive norms, I will follow a protocol that was developed by game theorists Krupka and Weber. So what's going to happen is that in a series of coordination games, participants who are fishers will have to rate the social appropriateness of a number of different actions. So for example, as you can see in the slide, the action would be somebody fishing or selling parrot fish during their closed season. It's important to note that this game is designed in a very smart way that provides respondents with incentives to match their ratings to other participants' estimates, rather than providing their own personal opinions about, for example, somebody selling parrotfish during the closed season. So really this protocol, what it does is it measures an injunctive norm because it creates an incentive for participants to anticipate the extent to which others think of an action as socially appropriate or inappropriate. So after having identified beliefs about behaviors of others, the next step is to understand how these beliefs spread and can possibly change for viable small-scale fisheries. As such, the second objective of this research is to characterize the relevant target population who is exhibiting such behavior and map the distribution of unsustainable fishing practices to observe how social norms travel and can potentially change within a fisher's community. So social norms, again, exist in a social network, and to understand how social norms form, spread, and change, it is first important to consider the social network that sustains them. In my research, I define a social network as the web of social connection through which norms and ideas spread and change across a population. So these two objectives are going to, these two parts of my research are going to take place from January 2022 until April 2022. In the meantime, I will be conducting a systematic literature review on social norms in the Commons. So I just wanted to conclude by saying that, by remarking my initial words, which is that ocean sustainability is small-scale fishing. Sustainability is about people and people's behavior with respect to the resources they depend upon. So really understanding what motivates human and humans' behavior will provide a key insight to understand how human behavior change. And this way we can find ways to promote new behaviors to adapt to the current challenges and circumstances that people are facing.